Okay, well, first of all, thanks so much everyone for coming. I feel that we have formed like a fictional small community for these days. Thanks for each of the artists that have received me in their house or in the space that we went to see the exhibition or in the museum today. I want to thank, of course, Serra for inviting me to participate in the program. We have a mutual friend. Yes, please. To SAHA, yes. We have a mutual friend and she connects us, and she's been so helpful for me to understand the dynamics of the CD, which is very dynamic. Also the people that work here, Duru and Ra, for providing us all the technology and the equipment. The idea is that today we have a more relaxed conversation, that because I have been questioning you, all the artists, with a personal question. I wanted to know everything about you. The idea is that also you know a little bit about my work. I also want to especially thanks to my friend Eduardo that is here. He's the only Chilean that is participating in this activity, and he is going to make sure that I don't tell any lies or exaggerate my love for the art of Latin America and my country. For those that don't know me, my name is Ignacio Szmulewicz. I'm an art historian. I studied art history at the academy, and then I did a master in architecture, and currently I'm doing a PhD in architectural studies and urban studies. I also have done curatorial projects, but my main passion is to write for magazines. I write for a magazine that is called La Panera. I write for Art Forum, Momus. So I think it's a super interesting landscape to participate right now. So this presentation is going to divide it in three parts. The first part, I'm going to share some of my personal stories, experiences that I have for the last year in 2024. Experiences that have formed the way I have been reading, and I also think that every personal experience, the way that you tell, the way that you narrate those stories is a way of communicating and processing and translating those experiences that you have. And today we are relying so much in residency journeys and experiences that I think that the process of turning those journeys into articles, books, work of art in your case, I think is something very important. The second part of my lecture, or my presentation, I hate the word lecture. It's kind of serious, right? I'm in France in one of those rooms giving a lecture. Well, it's a presentation. I hope that you have fun and hearing what I'm going to share. That's the first part. So I'm going to share with you three trips that I did in 2024. The second part is an article that is going to come out on a Mexican magazine the magazine is called Chiquilla Te Quiero, which can be translated as Girl, I Love You. That's the name of the magazine. So I met the editor of the magazine on the last trip of the first part of the presentation. And then the third part of the presentation, if we have time, because I don't want to get bored, is this curatorial project that I did in 2023 when we had the anniversary of the 50 years of the coup d'etat that occurred in 1973. Some of us, a lot of the institution, were working in how we are going to commemorate this moment. And I was invited to do a curatorial project, and that's the third part of the presentation that I wanted to share with you. So I began dreaming with water in 2021, and it was a regular dream. I forgot. I began dreaming in 2021 with water, and I wasn't sure why, of course. Some of us had dreams and we don't necessarily understand where they're coming from. It was a dream about swimming in the river, doing kayaking, navigating on a channel in Venice or in Chile. So it was kind of, water was a constant presence in my dreams. So I woke up in the morning and I wrote usually my dreams. So it's something that was constantly in the back of my head. And that is something that is personal, and I think that is interesting to analyze why those dreams come to us in certain moments. And as you all know, we are now obsessed with astrology. Next, please. Sorry, forgot. We are obsessed with astrology. That's my astral card. I'm a Taurus. I was born in May 8, 1986 in the south of Chile, in a very, very small city. On the right, that is me taking a video of the sunset, waiting if the green rayon is going to appear, which of course in that case didn't appear. It was in this year. And at the same time, I think that I relied, as we have talked this week, I relied so much on chance and the possibility of having encounters that are beyond the regular cases of research. I believe that sometimes getting lost is important to understand and to know. So that was a cookie, a fortune cookie, that I took last year, and it says on the paper, it says non-life is complete without a touch of craziness. So that was on 2024, and I was thinking constantly about these two experiences of dreaming with water and having to accept the craziness or the randomness of life. The first trip, next please. The first trip that I did, thank you. The first trip that I did was in our residency program in the beginning of 2024, sorry. It was on the summer, but as you can see on the pictures, I took a picture with the camera. As you can see in the picture, it was super cold. This trip was made in one of the regions in Patagonia. It was part of the PhD, and we went like 50 or 70 students from undergraduate and graduate, and we went on a mission to how to think about landscape. The idea was we had to be on a boat several days, and we had to register the landscape of the surroundings. For you to understand where we are, next please. This is a 220-hour plane from the capital of Chile in Santiago to a region in the Patagonia, in the south. We arrived at the airport, next please, and then we had to take a car, like a small van, from the airport. I'm going to stand up. Here's the airport, and we have to drive maybe 4 hours up on there where it says Puerto Cisnes, and then we took a boat and we sailed for 2 or 3 days inside a boat. So we share all these 15 people. We share, and some of us draw, some of us took pictures, video. And I was constantly thinking about this relationship with the landscape, and that is something that is going to be interesting. In the first video that I bring you to the right, if you click please, that is the view of one of the small islands that we stopped during the trip. This was like a mirror, a high part of the island, and then you will see like the whole area, which is amazing. And I was, of course, overwhelmed by the beauty of the landscape. Big mountains, skies, forests that were not be touched in centuries. And on the video in the left, you will see that we were approaching to a glacier that has been there in one of the pristine places that we have in the south of Chile. As we were staging in the residency, we have also, besides thinking about the beauty of the places, the overwhelming quality of the places, we also talk about the ownership of the places, all the small islands, all the small islands that you see on the right, and the video on the right. All these islands have owners. They are not private. They are private owners.
Do they live there? Locals?
Some are locals. Some are rich people from France, England, Russia. Some of those islands have houses. Some of those islands have like small port. So maybe this rich person arrive on a plane, another plane, and stay there for a month or two. No one knows. And on the left side is that's a national park. So it is owned by the state. So you get to feeling that it's a beautiful place. But can you turn to prior, please? But because it's owned to the state, prior, please. The first one, where do we see the picture? The previous? Another one, please. On the picture on the right, you will see how the state is maintaining our national park. So you will see that we don't have money to sustain this national park. So you go to a national park, and the first thing that you see is a ruin. So this is a paradoxical case, because it's protected by the state, but we don't have money to maintain it. There's like maybe one person in charge of 1 million of acres, so that person has to look after everything in the national park. And
is that like a cafe or?
Sorry?
It's a new building.
It's an old building. It used to be a hotel, but there was a fire, and it was left abandoned. That was 70 years ago. And then thank you. And then the second trip that I wanted to mention, it will occur exactly 1 month afterwards. It was a trip to this another beautiful place in Patagonia that is called Torres del Paine. I also took pictures with my camera. This place is located, thank you, next one. This place is located 3 and 20 minutes by plane from the capital, and then you arrive to Puerto Natales, which is of course very beautiful, and then, next please, and then you take a car or a bus, and then you go to the entrance to the park, and then you just can walk. It's a park where you have to hike 6 hours, 8 hours, or you can hike days. You can stay in the park as long as you have the money to camp or the money to pay for the small hotels. And it's very beautiful. It's one of the beautiful places, again, on earth. And to the left, you will see some of the beautiful landscape, like the mountains. It was unbelievable, the nature. And to the right, that is me like looking. I go outside some of the route of the hiking. I began to look this mountain. I began to take pictures and videos of the place. And at the center, there's a complete video of the panoramic, and you will see in the video of the center the way that the glacier is receding, and then you will see the mark on the glacier has left in the stone, that mark that show climate change. And at the back of the center video, you will see the second biggest reserve of fresh water on Earth, that is Campo Hielo Sur, the southern cap ice. And the third trip that I want to share with you, it was really, really different, because I was invited to participate as a curatorial guest in a biennial, an activist biennial, run especially by activists in Guatemala. Guatemala is in the center part of the continent. It's a country with a majority of indigenous. So I took a plane 10-hour plane, and arrive at Guatemala City. And on the left, next please, on the left is the Maya, the curator of the biennial, the director of the biennial, explaining us the extractive history that the Guatemala has had, the political history that Guatemala has had of international companies extracting the resources of the country, intervening in the politics of the country since the colonization process. So it's a biennial that was very much directed to politics, to activism, and we did several interventions in the public place, and then we drove to another city, and we did intervention in a building that was formerly a detention center in Guatemala. And the picture on the right is a picture of it's a photo of Honduras, and you will see also this beautiful forest, but all contaminated by companies that go extract, or even small city that lives in the forest. So as you can see, both are beautiful countries, both are beautiful landscape, but there's a different perspective. In Patagonia, you will have this perspective of a pristine, beautiful landscape, and we as Chilean are like proud of this super beautiful landscape, but we don't necessarily are taught or told that we have a history that is in relationship with extractivism, or a history that is in relationship with indigenous. When you go to each of these places, none of the tutor of the residency or none of the guides talk about the problems of private ownership of land, or extractivism, or colonial history. So this was my discovery in Guatemala. My experience was super strong, of course. As an art historian, you should understand that we are being taught, even in Chile, we are taught and in the traditional Western art history. So the first thing that we see, of course, is the Acropolis. We saw the Egyptian pyramid. So we began our art history seeing Raphael, Tiziano, and I can recite you names of important painters of the 16th, 17th century. So it's important for us right now to think about this paradox of being formed in a language and a history that is not necessarily the one of our ancestors. And on the center, I took a picture of an intervention on the street that I saw in Guatemala that says, "Against all authority, lest the ancestor one." And two women, an older woman, a younger woman, with their eyes closed. Sorry?
I couldn't understand. Can you repeat?
Yes, the phrase says, against all authority, except the ancestral one. On the left, we did you can run the video. On the left, there is a video of us doing a performance and on the right, us and a party celebrating the biennial. So as you can see, in Guatemala, you get a strong experience of political action, and at the same time, we have a wonderful time. We eat delicious, we hug each other, and we share love and warm affection for one another.
Did you say the curators or the institution, the art institution, don't talk about decolonialism?
Especially that institution. That is a particular institution in Guatemala that is called Bienal of Resistance. The name is Bienal of Resistance. So this is a biennial oriented to activism. It's one of the...
They do talk about it.
They do talk about it. Yeah. That's the main...
Others don't?
I didn't know much of the other institutions. Galleries, not necessarily. But in general, I will say that in general in Latin America, most of the institutions are working now with decolonization. In general, but you never know, because some are more conservative, especially the ones that are run by the state. In some states, the institutions are much more conservative. So those were the 3 trips that I took. You can pass to the next one. And then at the end of the biennial, we took this photo, these beautiful photos. We are all the artists, all the team that work in the biennial in this formerly detention central building in central Guatemala. And we did, one artist did this textile. It says, how we can translate it, let's sow our future together. So, tejamos nuestro futuro, let's sow our future. So all of this, of course, make me think about what am I doing? What the hell am I doing? I'm an art historian. I write for magazine. I have to think about it. So this is me with my editor of my magazine, hugging each other when we turned 10 years of collaborating in my magazine. I said to my editor, she's called Pilar. My magazine is run by this important gallery, private gallery in Santiago. It's the one gallery that run a magazine that is a free magazine and pays all the writers, so it's an important piece of our community. I said to my editor, okay, I don't want to do more art critic. I'm tired. I wrote 10 years of reviews for a private institution, independent artists, and I said to her, okay, no one is reading. Okay, I don't want to do anymore. And I said to her, it's curious, not even the artists read the articles that I wrote about them. So I said to, who cares? No one is reading. So I said, let me try something different, because I want to reflect on these experiences that I had this year. I went to Patagonia. I went 2 times to Patagonia. I went to Guatemala. I want to do something about the nature. I want to think about the nature. I want to rewrite our history, but I want to do it in relationship with nature. So I propose a series of articles that start doing like an atlas, or instead of a history of art, a natural history of art. So I began a series of articles that is ongoing. Every month I wrote an article. The first one was about rivers. The second one was about deserts. The third one was about ice, I think. Then gardens, and then the one that just came out this last Sunday is about flowers. So I try to mix popular culture, question about how these themes are addressed in the art history, but also in younger artists. So I incorporate artists that does performance with flowers, artists that does intervention in the rivers, artists that work directly with forests. So I'm trying to rewrite in my own way, of course, in the way that I can do it, and try to help to rethink our history. And I think this is important, but it's in my way of rereading and try to relearn the history that was taught to us so strictly. So that was the first part of my presentation. My passion right now is devoted completely to this rewriting of our history through the experience of these 3 emotional and important journeys, where as you can guess, it was super fun journeys, but at the same time I wanted to think about these paradoxical places, how beauty can relate with politics. That is a relationship that is super important. Today we were talking with another artist that is not here about the ethical aspect of art, how art has to be dealing with a question about ethic, how art history also deals with a question about ethic. So most of us are trying to address this question, that is what is the ethical action of our words. So in the next, please. In the second part of the presentation, I wanted to talk about this ethical aspect, and in an article that I wrote for a magazine that is called Chiquilla Te Quiero, I mean, girl, I love you. I'm sure that the editor doesn't want to translate it, but you can call it girl, I love you. So this is going to come out now in February. It's just finished the design. Actually, this is the first presentation that we are doing about the magazine. I did an article, it's called La Tierra es un barco a la deriva, which I translated as I will show you in the title of the presentation. It was a cheap, the Earth is a chip adrift. I review 7 pieces by 7 young, very, very young artists, pieces that were made in the last maybe 3 or 4 years. Some of those pieces I saw it in biennales, in exhibitions, in all around America, from New York, Sao Paulo, Guatemala, Panama, or Santiago. So in the article, I address different topics. I want to show you there. You cannot read it, but I'm going to show you a little bit of the pages. And then the next piece, there is a selection of the 6 pieces, and we present these artists to the community in a first-person perspective. When I saw them, how I relate with the artists, and my idea was to reflect on this problem. So the next one, please. The first idea that I want to comment right now with you, share with you, is the idea that I feel that right now the main preoccupation of artists, young artists, institution is the consciousness of Earth. The consciousness of Earth, I understand it from different perspective, but I want to address you through this idea with a small reflection of Latin American art since prehistorical time up until contemporary art. So the consciousness of Earth has to deal with the fact that for one part there is the scale of the Earth, the idea that we are now thinking about Earth as a planet, not necessarily as a territory. Sometimes you will hear the word territory as a word much heard in contemporary art. I think right now most of the artists are addressing a question that has to do with the scale of the Earth. That means that their practice is dealing with something that they understand is big enough, bigger than what they can see, bigger than their parents have saw before, bigger than the concept of nation, bigger than the concept of ecosystem. So it's something that is a container for all life. It's a container for all life. So if you look at the history of images or the history of practices, cultural practices in Latin America, you will see that this consciousness of Earth is something that was very much incorporated in the minds and practices of indigenous. It's something that I myself have to learn from that. I myself have to study that. I myself have to read books, talk with them to understand. So in these pictures, these were photos made in the early 20th century when anthropologists went to the south of Chile and asked this community if they can recreate some of the rituals that they used to do maybe 100 years ago, 200 years ago, when they stopped doing these rituals. So they recreate, these are recreational rituals that they didn't do anymore, but they were like, please recreate them in order to have a photo of those costumes all the way. And one aspect of those rituals, of course, had to do with the relationship with the sky, with the moments of moon, with the moment of years when they perform these rituals. And the other aspect of those rituals that I want to tell you is the relationship between the inside and the borders of the land where they used to inhabit, because they inhabited an island. So they usually went to the inside or the coast to perform this ritual. So this ritual meant that they had to move for a big portion of this land, that they are affected, and their life is affected by a big landscape that include water, earth, mountains, and is related with the cycle of life. And the next one is also something interesting in terms of the consciousness of the earth. It is the way the Spanish recorder in Latin words the tales of the Popol Vuh, which is the sacred book of the Maya Cacique, which are the main indigenous in the Central America. And they recorded these stories of the origin and the end of the world. The next one. And these stories, and this is the paradox, of course, these stories talk about the beginning of the world, and they project also an end of the world. So when I began to think about the consciousness of the earth, while I do this part of the presentation, I want for you to think also about the scale, which is something that has to do with spatial awareness of our planet, but also consciousness of the earth means about time. It's also addressing the time aspect. And time for me is not necessarily a linear time, but it's a time that has a narrative time for you to have a beginning and an end. Maybe that end, for instance, is also a circular end. It goes again to a cycle of creation, destruction, creation, destruction, creation, destruction. The previous one, please. But this cycle is something that has to do with time. So when I wrote this article, I think about this element, the consciousness of Earth, dealing about space and time, and how is another notion of us relationship with the landscape, the territory, the space that we inhabited. Next, please. So this was also a technology, and this is something that we are thinking about a lot, because we usually, as an art historian, we are very much taught that technology is something that was invented in the modern period. So technology is reading language, or is machines turned to useful for mankind. But we have never been told that these were artifacts, these were a technology. Language is a technology, and textiles were a form of technology for the indigenous people. So this is what they call a quipu. It's an instrument, I'm sure that you have seen it before. It's an instrument that the Andes people use to record accounts. So this amount of potatoes, this amount of fruit, this amount of anything, and it was transportable. Now it's exhibited in a museum in Chile, expanded, but it was actually something that you carry in your bag. And then it was displayed, and you can read it to the knots. Each knot represents something, it's a language. So maybe 3 cows, two bears, I don't know, potatoes or corn or whatever. So this was a technology, and it's also something super interesting. It's also had to do with movement, because this was something to communicate to someone that is very far away. It's something that you cannot transmit by talk. It's something you have to transmit through an object. So it's a book. It's something like a book. So
it's an accounting book.
Sorry?
It's an accounting
It's something like an accounting book, exactly.
What
So
was the name again?
Quipu with a Q. Q-U-E-P-U. I'm going to send you all the presentation. So don't worry. You don't need to. You just need to look the beautiful images that I prepared for you. So this made me think about, as you can see, the prior. Can you show the prior? Language. And you can see in the following, technology. So let us think now, and let us reflect on the history of Latin American art. The next one. So we have been told that this is technology. This is the technology that was invented in the 15th century in order to sailors to cross the Africa, and then they can go beyond the borders of the sea. So when they arrive to America, they will arrive not only because of ideological and religious reasons, they arrive thanks to technology. This is technology, this is metal, this is something that is going to last, is durable, and the other technology is something that is dissolved, is organic, it's going to be lost. We talk about textile with growth. And the next one, and this is a man going to conquer the new world on a boat. This is a group of men with arms going to conquer the new world. As you can see in the 1992 movie that Ridley Scott put up that is called 1492, The Conquest of the Paradise. And this is important, but for us, hold it there for a minute. For us, this was a narrative that it was very important for us for what we were called the discovery of America. Now we call it the encounter of two worlds. The state Chile called it the encounter between two worlds. It wasn't actually an encounter. It was an extermination of one world against another. So, sorry?
What's it in Spanish?
In Spanish, the state is calling officially, instead of the day of the discovery of America, right now is calling it the day of the encounter between two worlds. The encounter between two worlds. And we, of course, in the academic or in the intellectual field, we call it a genocide. So, because it was a genocide. So, next please. So the image of the European, Central European world was this. This was the first map of that was drawn in 1510 by Juan de la Costa. And as you can see in the central part of the map, you will have Europe. Of course, you can see what was then known as Constantinople, Africa, Asia, and you will see that on the left side, this side, was something that is going to be America, but at that moment was just names and the borders. It was not a continent totally that hasn't been around America. So you will see just something that is going to be known eventually. So this was a way of the modern Europe to describe, put into image of a continent that already produced language, technology, images. So, but this is a cartography, a way of looking at a landscape of a territory, of a part of the world. As you can see, this was a map that eventually was full, and then we have a view of the Earth. And this is not different from the view that we see now in Google Maps. So it's interesting. You know, already in the 16th century, we are beginning to think about cartography as a way of like this, like modeling the Earth, but in a mathematical, geometrical form, so we can look it up at every detail, and we have these lines that eventually is going to be parallel and horizontal, those lines that are guiding us into the unknown world. And the next part, so I'm going to jump a little. So 300 years later, we have knowledge, the production of knowledge. So we have the journey of Alexander von Humboldt, a naturalist that went to Colombia, and he took a boat and he climbed the Chimborazo mountain, and from there he thought the idea that if you look at the world in different parts of the world, you will see similar phenomena. So he began to think about this idea of the cosmos, of this idea that knowledge or part of the world are related. So he began to think about the cosmos, of the world. And then, of course, this idea of mapping, putting names, that is something super important for the modern culture that is still dominant in not only in the academic field, in the political field, in the economical field, in the military field, for instance. So, hi. Hi, please.
So sorry, we couldn't.
No, don't worry. Please. And then in the next one, we have, if you continue the history of Latin American, we arrive at the beginning of the 19th century, when was the moment where most of our countries began our independent process. That independent process was that we create national states, and the majority of those national states were created in the first 10 or 2 decades of the 19th century. And the coincidence was that when we decided to become independent, we accept, or we were free of the Spanish colonization, but we adopted the principles of the French Revolution, science, reason, technology, model development, industrialization began part of the core of most of the Latin American states. So this was in the core of the new state in the early stage of the 19th century were this idea of reason, science, industrialization. So my idea is to show you very quickly this process and show you, for instance, how these ideas, in the next please, how these ideas were transformed into images. So you can see here in the in early 19th, the previous, just a bit, you will see here in the left side of the image, you will see like local, indigenous, mountain, exactly in the middle of the image, in the left part of the image. You will see like seeding, community, animality, fire, food, and on the right side, on the right side of the image, you will see like science, human standing, and what we see at the center of the image, technology again. So this was very important for us. So what I'm saying that most of the Latin American countries in the early stage of the 19th century, they accepted these notions of science reasons as a way of getting rid of the Spanish colonization, but also as a way of putting away all the heritage of indigenous. So most of our countries, the countries from Eduardo now are coming from, Chile, Peru, Argentina, Colombia, Venezuela, those countries have been, they born from a modern science European core. So they get rid of all their religion and they get rid of the indigenous. So these are interesting aspect for the origin of our images. On the right, in the next one, thanks, you will see a photography of the volcano, the Chimborazo, the one that Humboldt climbed with Aimé Bonpland and at the early 19th century. In the next image, you will see something, that one, yes. In the next image, you will see one of our own art history, Chilean art history, and Brazilian art history, one of the first painters of our country. This was a German travelist, someone that went with scientific expedition to South America, and he stayed in Brazil, in Chile, and in Peru. He was called Johann Moritz Rugendas. When we were in school, we were taught that this is Juan Mauricio Rugendas, because we nationalized it. So we were taught that this is Juan Mauricio Rugendas, when he was Johann Moritz Rugendas. And it's super funny because everyone in Chile is going to be said, okay, Juan Mauricio Rugendas is a Chilean painter. So, but what I wanted to show you is the not necessarily the vertical axis. I wanted you to look at the horizontal axis. In the lower part of the image, if you come, you will see that the encounter of these locals, mestizo people that you don't know, they are not indigenous. They are dressed like a little bit more modern. They're in the field staging like a small conversation. You can see that maybe the man in the horse is saying, "Is that the way too?" And the other one is saying, "Yeah, or you can sit with us, drink a tea with us." And on the right part of the image, you will see the mountains, nature. nature as a force, as a predominant part or element identity for our country. So for majority of our art history, we have been taught that this image, nature as a border, nature is this form of nature, the mountains, is part of our identity. So in this image that is in the middle of the 19th century, you will see this detail of a country that is being born. This was only 20 years since our independence. You don't see a city, right? But the capital is between those hills. So actually there is a city, but the painter decided not to include it. So the city is actually in the second hill to the right. The city is there. I can see it, I can imagine, I can project it. In 1838, probably there was a city. What you can see is a road, a sinuous road, where these men are beginning a journey, the beginning of a journey of a new country. The next point. And there you will see two images of our nationalist painter, the painter that studied in Chile, that were formed in Chile. They create the first important images of our country. On the left, we have, look again, the Spanish saying here, this is the foundation of Santiago. And there you see the man at the center image, the conquistador at the center of the images, and in the indigenous as one with the rock, laying exactly below the belt on the part that doesn't think. And you will see that the Spanish conquistador is saying words, is extending their hand and saying this is the corner that we're going to create modernity, city, civilization, and the indigenous are subjugated on the bottom part of the image. And then to the right, you will see an older man teaching a younger man, a younger boy, our landscape. And it's called Lección de Geography. It's the lesson of geography. So you should know that this is your country. So within the world, you have a world, a globo-terráqueo world, and there is there you can see the America and the southern hemisphere, and there is the man speaking again. As you can see, his mouth slowly open, and he's saying, "This is our land," and he's pointed out with his finger to the boy that is learning and becoming of age. So these are two major paintings that were super important in the 19th century because these were nationalist painters. The first painter that were born in Chile, they studied in the Chilean Academy, and they have to be delivered a national historical painting. So this process, thank you, the next one. This process changed completely in the 20th century. In the second decade of the 20th century, there is a big change in most of the country's perspective. And so there was a critique in saying, okay, how have we thought about landscape, memory, history, the national? So we are beginning modern art in several countries, in Brazil, in Chile, in Venezuela, and most of that modern movement has to do with a recognition of the relationship between the indigenous and the land. The indigenous and the land, the people and the land. How are we thinking our land or our context? So on the right, you will see a small mold, a small head, big foot touching the ground, and a strong connection, horizontal connection with the cactus and the sun. This was the central image of the anthropophago. I don't know how this is the word in English, but it's when you eat something and you devour. This was the manifest of anthropophagia, which is called like when you devour Europe and you digest it and you turn it into something else. And this was the origin of the modern movement in Brazil. So this is an image that we are now looking at a completely different eye. It's an image that it replaced the national images that I just showed you. So especially during the 20th century, this was a process that right now is super important in collections, in museums. So most of the museums are rewriting their own history, and instead of looking at these nationalist painters of the 19th century, we are looking at this work of art that have been dealing with the concept of nature in a different way. And we have this process all around the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and so on. So this was a Uruguayan painter that was radicating in the 20s in Paris, and then he decided that he wanted to go back to Uruguay, and he created this idea of inverted America, of we have to change the cartography. Instead of us looking at the north, thinking about the north, thinking about United States or Europe, we have to think about south as our north. So instead of looking at the capitals of the world, the northern hemisphere, we should look at Antarctica, Patagonia. So as you can see, those are the places I have traveled in the 2 trips that I show you at the beginning of the presentation. The ones that arrive later will receive the presentation, and you are not going to miss anything, so don't worry. So this is the beginning of the modern period, and then you have also Chilean painters, Uruguayan painter, Brazilian painter, working with the importance of the land, the earth, the consciousness of the importance of not the industrial age, the ones that the modern period of the 19th century of science, but the unconsciousness, all the characteristics that deal with abstraction, but in a way of connecting with land, earth, the forces of the earth. So you can see, for instance, in the left part of the image, you will see volcanoes emerging and throwing lava to the atmosphere and everything. It's called Invasion of the Night. So this is a process. In the next one, this was a process that it was constantly developing in the 20th century. Here you see a piece by Cecilia Vicuña, the next one, she collects leaves from the park, and all these dry leaves from the park, and she put all these leaves inside the museum, and she called it the Autumn Salon. So instead of putting a collection of painters, she just put in the museum, she just put leaf. And this was in 1971, when we were beginning like the conceptual, more intervention, more contemporary. So I'll show you like the nationalist movement in the 19th century, the modern movement in the first part of the 20th century, and the conceptual contemporary art movement for the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So you will see, for instance, Cecilia Vicuña, but you can also see, for instance, the next one, you will see Juan Downey, that he traveled across America. Instead of seeing the world through the eyes of an European, thanks to technology, giving the indigenous the technology and letting them record the reality through their eyes. So this was a community project that was oriented to the work with how indigenous are recording or registered in the reality. So he went all across the Pan American highway that stretches from Alaska to Patagonia, and especially in some part where he found indigenous. This is the Yanomami in the east part of Peru. He encountered in this process, so he gave away this camera. He explained the process of recording, and he showed these videos to them, and they began to realize that they can also register and use this technology to their own purposes. Next one. So as you can see, there is Juan Downey in one of the communities. There is more people registered in the world. And in the next one, you will see drawings of Juan Downey also about America. And in the next one, you will see the car that he used to move across the continent. And the last image that I want to show you about this idea of consciousness of the earth that for me has been helpful to re-understand our own history was a piece that was made during the dictatorship period, and it was a public intervention. On the left part, the artist hanged himself from the outside a subway station alongside the map of the country, and on the right part, as you can see, he's barefoot sitting on top of a mountain of earth alongside a geopolitical map of our country, and it says Chile fértil provincia y señalada, which means Chile like a fertile land and point out. So afterwards he printed those images and put it in public spaces and recorded how much those postals were left on the site before someone took it away. So it was a collaborative process with the community also. But at the center of the image, that's what I want you guys to look, is the idea that a person needs to be in connection with the land. That's what the basic notion that I was talking about when I began thinking for the article, the idea of the consciousness of the earth. So, the next one. Earth, for me, is, in the article, Earth is a traject. It's a planet that is moving somewhere. It's not a place where you can extract materials. It's not a place for science to study. It's not necessarily just a place for us to extract resources. Earth is a planet that is constantly changing. So this means that I'm not inventing this concept, of course. I took this concept from a theorist, a philosopher from India. This is called Frederick Neirath, and he's super interested. And he said that exactly that, the idea that for the most part we have things as Earth as property, is us, is belong to us. We can do whatever we want with the Earth, but he says that not so quite, because Earth is moving somewhere. It has moved prior to us. It has developed prior to us. He did all that without our need, without our help. He transformed from pieces of rocks that collapse, forces like gravity, forces like the sun, forces like materials that come from the space, and Earth developed life. It's not life that put Earth on a move. It's not us giving Earth life. It's not us saying, it's not us animating Earth. It's Earth that gave us life. And he also pointed out the fact that probably Earth is going to leave mankind. So that's something that we have to incorporate. We have to think that we are powerless in some aspect. We can drill, we can excavate, he said, but there are some part of the world that we are powerless. And is that powerless of mankind that is the agency that is the real agency of the earth. The agency of the earth is not us conservative, trying to preserve like a national park. It's not us saying this is going to stay still. It's understanding that we are simply things that we are not going to be able to transform our purpose or preserve for our purpose. So this is a concept that is interesting to me because it looks more as the Earth as a planet, and that way, that's all the pieces that I was showing you, and the pieces that I'm going to show you right now. So in the next image, I will show you the first view of the Earth that was taken in 1946, if I recall, from space. As you can see, you will see, for instance, one of the first thing they discovered was the things that were moving in the stratosphere, the big clouds, the mountains, the layers that were on Earth. And on the right is one of my notes that I was doing while writing the article. So on the upper says, the Earth is the center of the universe. So I draw, as I can, some planets, and I put E for Earth. And on the right, I put the Earth is a planet, is a moving planet, like Galileo Copernico. So I put the solar system, as I remember. As you can see, I'm not much of a drawer. And on the second part, I put the Earth. It can lead to a state of deterioration. So the idea that, for instance, mankind, much of the conservative preservation movement is like thinking about how can we improve Earth as for a purpose. So that was an image that is called the Blue Marble from 1972, which is the Earth as seen as a whole. In the next one, I wanted to point out the fact that the pieces that I selected in the article, some of the pieces are, or a group of the pieces has to do with journeys, and that's why I show you journeys. Because I think that we have to, in Latin American art, we are, part of our DNA has to do with journey, with the fact that these are people that move from another part of the world to establish their movement, and the idea that movement is connected with water. That's what I call it, a ship at sea. Earth is a ship at sea. So we are, most of the pieces that are in the article are dealing with the fact that either like connecting with technology, but at the same time with water. For instance, a Puerto Rican artist that worked with the idea that Puerto Rico is actually an island, so is how they think the flow of the water instead of the solidity of the land. And for explaining that idea, I want to share with you a piece, next one, that a Chilean artist made that is called Ocean. It's a record of a trip from Valparaiso, that's the port of the main port in Chile, that he made from Valparaiso in the ship. And so he put a camera and he recorded like the complete trip, 23 days, and the piece is 23 days long. So if you exhibit it in a museum, maybe you go to the museum and you will see nothing because it's dark. So the camera is on dark, and the piece was exhibited. Next one. And also with 23 documentaries that he made of each of the days of the journey. And also, next one, also he included these notes of each of the days and the moments on the places where the ship was passing through in the Pacific, and also in the next one in the Atlantic. So that is one of the pieces that I want to share with you, that deals with the idea that a ship at sea, that we are moving, and the movement that we're doing is in relationship with water. We are not thinking of movement only in the sense that moving in the horizontal vertex. We were moving in this kind of, as you can see all the way here in Istanbul, the idea that you're constantly flowing, you are feeling the sense of orientation, and the stability of the ground is something that is, when you're on top of a ship, you lose, where you get dizzy, you get, it's a journey, whatever. The third part of the third concept that I developed in the article is the idea of getting lost. It's something that I think is super important right now. It's like the journey is not, most of the artists, they are not going to investigate like in a scientific notion. They're investigating, or they're going to places to get lost. They are not in the science tradition. They are going in a psychogeography and deriva. There was a concept that was developed by Guy Debord in the 60s. It's a concept that I encounter constantly in the work of Rebecca Solnit, for instance, and it's something that is super present in Latin American art. For example, the construct that I wanted to make is that if modernity is rationality, architectural, and the hand of the architect pointing out where you should be, where you should sleep, where you should work, where you should recreate and play, and the opposite image, you will see a piece made, next one, a piece made by Francis Alice in Mexico City, where he decided that, okay, I'm going to use the city as my canvas, and instead of going to work, I'm going to use the whole city as a place for work, play, and essentially get lost with this cube of ice. So in the video, there is a video that's only, I think, 6 minutes long. You will see the artist pushing this block of ice until this block of ice turn into just the previous, just a fragment where you can play. So he began to play football with some kids that are in the street. So this kind of idea that getting lost is something that is against the modern tradition of science and rationality. That is something that, of course, in architecture is super strong. And that is something that I want to discuss, of course. Finally, the article, as was pointed out early in the presentation, my idea is also to explore the feeling of time, the idea that these artists are constantly thinking about the beginning, middle, of end of a story, the idea there is a past, present, and future, constantly feeling that sense of movement, of a story. So in the 7 cases that I'm going to show you, you will see that there are an intricate relationship between past, present, and future. You're not seeing the beginning of an end of a story, but constantly you're seeing like this kind of a past action in the present, but at the same time performing for a future. So it's something that I think is important in the 7 pieces that I'm going to show you. And to example that, I brought you a selection, a quote, the next one please, a quote by the last book of Rebecca Stolnit. I don't know if you have read it. It's a book that she published this year, 2024. There was when she decided that she wanted to garden during the war or during COVID, and she began to wonder what is the sense of everything, writing. I just want to restore a garden. So she realized that within the relationship with nature, there is a feeling of connection and getting lost and getting the like a spiral. She put it out like you go to the past, you go to the present. Something that you're going to restoring is going to die eventually very quickly because it's going to it's going to be getting die. So the idea that death is not the end of the cycle, that you can restore a garden and everything. So she developed that concept in this beautiful book that is called A Garden. Look, The Garden Against Time. Against, that's the title of the essay. So next one, please. Earth is a tragic, is a ship at sea. We are getting lost instead of found something or found knowledge, and it's also a way of connecting with a feeling of time. Next, please. So the 7 pieces that I want to share with you are what I call stories instead of history, a story for the future of the planet. So these 7 pieces, how are we going to time? These 7 pieces, here we go. These 7 pieces were made by 7 young Latin American artists. I'm going to explain briefly each piece, and then we can maybe end because it's already taking too long. On the left part is a Brazilian artist that is called Yuri Cruz, and I want to show you each of these pieces and explain it to you very briefly so that you can get an idea. Rebengué is the title of this piece that he made in 2023 in the museum in MAM in Rio de Janeiro. In the next slide, you can see the detail of the piece. The piece is a beautiful installation, performance, theatrical experience of this crushing relationship between two fictional planets. One planet is called Revengue, and the other planet, I think the name is in the previous slide, please. The other planet, sorry, is plein air. In the other is Revengue. Next one. In Revengue is a planet where life occurs, life is happening, so you will get this kind of shapes of something becoming, of something developing. And in the other planet, plein air, is a planet where things get stuck, get transformed, it's stone. So you will see, for instance, those pieces of foot, of feet are the character of the story that crosses two of the planet, because these two planets are connected through a portal. So the artist, for me, when I talked with him, I was fascinated by this idea, an artist that invented two planets, but those planets are not separated. They have a portal, what we call a black hole. So in one planet is life and the other planet is death. In both planets, both planets are connected. They are not detached from another. There is a portal, and if you want to come from one to the other, you can. So you can experience life, you can experience death. In the planet where life is occurring, you will see like sunrises, you will see like this kind of organic forms, and this is the people like expressing their body. And in the other planet is stiffness, steadiness, rock. So it was interesting to me to think that right now a young artist is thinking about these two fictional planets where life and death is going to occur. So this is Judy Cruz, a Brazilian artist that is based on Rio de Janeiro. The next artist,
Can we
sorry.
see the stage from all around, or?
The stage is circular, so can you leave the next one? The stage is circular, so people can point out when they did the performance all around this circle, and at the center of the circle is the stone planet, what is called plein air, and on the outside of in the walls you will see images of two circles colliding, different elements hanging, but all those elements are dealing with the relationship between the two of the planets. And the second artist is called Milko Delgado. He's from Panama, and he did a short video that's called Los Diablos, and he worked with young people, like adolescents, from the coast of Mexico, and they dance during this 2 or 3 minute video, and they dance to like performing these mythical characters. They call it Los Diablos. So it's the presence in a small village. Next one, please. Is the presence in the small village of this like terrific, like terror, like this character that terrorized the population. So their own young people are performing this kind of character that's going to scare the population. So it was interesting to me to see this video, because it was like starting on the coast as these beings arrive from the sea, and at the same time these beings go to the village and they dance in front of the people, in front of the houses, like trying to scare, but they're not so scary. So there is a voice of a children talking about his experience with the Diablos, with this kind of, what was the word for Diablos? Like
Devils.
Devils, thank you. So these devils are like, so in the off voice, you will hear this kid like talking about the devils. And the video end up in the sunset. So he began in the sunrise and he end up in the sunset. And they go back to the water. So this is circular. It's the presence of this devil in the daily life. They look menacing. They are old. You don't know how old they are. They're ancient creatures, beings that come to terrify the population, but at the same time they're like linked between. And I also find interesting the fact that he worked with kids, adolescents that are like from this community. The third piece is by a Venezuelan artist that is called Wiki Pirela, and she lives in Chile, and she did an exhibition about her journey to this new land because she had to flee Venezuela and she went to live in Santiago. So she arrived in Santiago. She had to live in a very tiny apartment. So she began to recreate her imaginary, her world in this small apartment with elements that she found on the street, like super cheap material, like carton, like silk, like all these materials. She just began to recreate all his world from the Caribbean. Like you will see a mermaid, you will see a snake, you will see the sun, you will see like mountains. All these images are from her own world that is from the Caribbean, and she brought her world into Santiago. So I think that's the previous one. So I think it's super interesting that she was like moving her own world, her own tradition, and to incorporate it into a different world. So it's also the idea of journey, the idea of moving her myth with her life, the idea that her myths can move to another context. Myth is not something that is located only in that place, that she traveled with her myths, and it's something that really interests me. The fourth piece is, next one please. The fourth piece is by another Brazilian artist that's called Janaína Wagner. She did a piece about the Trans-Amazonic Highway. This was a super important infrastructure that was constructed during the dictatorship in Brazil, that the idea was cross the Atlantic and connect the Atlantic with the Pacific and create this highway in the middle of the jungle, which was super crazy, of course. So she went to the first village that was founded in a crossroad, and she discovered that one person in that village, has looking at caves. So it was curious. She discovered that in that village, in the middle of the Amazonian forest, there was a cave, like multiple caves, and she entered those caves, and she decided that she's going to use the cave as a metaphor of the moon. So next one. So she created this kind of big structure with the image of the moon. So she began to travel in the Trans-Amazonic Highway, like bringing the moon to different towns and projecting film in that moon. So you will see like she's projecting in the caves the image of the moon. So it's connecting the center of the Earth with the planet that is closer to the Earth. So all of this in connection with the cave, because she discovered that in this village where this modern project of infrastructure had these prehistorical caves where the locals were to venerate it for a long time ago. So for instance, in the next one, you will see the construction of the highway, and in the next one, you will see a teacher that she knew, that she encountered during the research, that teacher went to the caves, discovered the caves, and went to, and she was like telling the villagers that in the cave lives the moon. So it's a very interesting project. For instance, the center of the Earth, you will find a body, of a spatial body that is not on Earth. So again, the idea of Earth in non-modernist way of thinking and venerating this cave, it was something that it was super interesting. The sixth project, I think it's the sixth project, the fourth project I want to mention is by a Puerto Rican artist. It's called Natalia Lasalle Morillo. She did a project with 4 women from Puerto Rican heritage living in New York. And the 4 women, this is super interesting because it has to do with time. The 4 women yes, thank you. The 4 women, they decided they want to do a recreation of the Antigona play, you know, Antigona from Sophocles. So each woman incorporate a character from Antigona, you know, a play from 2,500 years ago, and they're going to use this, transform this Antigona play, and they're going to adapt it to their own Puerto Rican heritage in New York. So they began to wonder about their own history through this character that they took from Antigona. So they begin in the image, it's a 3-channel video, and in the right, there is one of the women from Puerto Rico that is going to perform in an old factory, old sugar factory, that was the neighborhood from Puerto Rican heritage. In the next one, you will see like one of the characters also, drawing a cartography of their own history. So this piece was very interesting because it's a piece that deals with a myth that comes from Europe that is incorporated like in the Latin American context. It was used for talking about people that were not exiled, but it was a diaspora of women from Puerto Rico living in New York. And for me, it was very interesting because I saw that she was like recreating their history, but at the same time performing their history in the space. So they all went to create like actions in different places of New York. At the end, that's one of the places in New York where they are creating this action. At the end of the piece, the next one please. At the end of the piece, a group of women in the same museum where the piece was shown, a group of women began to sing, scream, or chant the words La Libertad, freedom, and the words water, agua. So a chorus of all these women began to chant super loud the word water and freedom. Those 2 words like super and strong for Puerto Rico, which is a colony of the United States. It's a non-state of the United States. They have no rights, but they are part of the country. So it's like an island that is isolated, but at the same time, most of the population have to leave the country. So it's something that, again, has to do with the conscience of a scale much bigger, the conscience of time, and the conscience of water. Of course, this is something that is super interesting to me. The 6th project is a project by a Chilean artist that is called Martín Laroche, and he created a museum that is called Museo Legítimo, Museo Legítimo. That is a collection of objects that have been given to him, very, very small objects. All of those objects are stored in this hat. So each of those objects bear a story that the artist communicated every time that he took the hat off, took an object, and began to share a story. So here is an image of the artist, like with a small group of people, because it's a performance that usually is performed with a small group of people. So he take one of those objects that he's been given away, but someone that is very, very far away, maybe a person from Japan, maybe a person from Turkey, maybe a person from South Africa, a person from the United States, and each person that give away his object give away a story. So again, the concept of space, like this is a hat that contains, for instance, stories for people from all around the world, and that is moving, because as a piece that is always moving, he goes every day with his hat, and if he runs with you, maybe he sometimes get the hat off and he began to tell you a story. It's super funny. So it's interesting to me because also, even though it's portátil, you can move, it's stories of people all around the earth that is moving all around the earth. And I always think of myself, maybe this is the museum of the future. This is the museum that is going to be carrying, if we are all going to die and you want to send someone to the other planet that we're going to inhabit, I will send Martin because he has the stories of all the people, all the stories to tell it. The last piece that I wanted to show you is, of course, by an indigenous artist from the south of Chile. She's called Neyen Pailamilla, and she did a piece about a dream. And I want to end this presentation with this dream. I share you that I dream constantly with water from 2021 and so on. And she made a piece about a girl that is dreaming with water. Leave it there a little while. She is in the dream. She dreams that this person goes to a lake. She sees a body that is submerged in water. So that's this artist submerged in a lake, a beautiful lake, similar to the ones that I navigated in the journeys. But there is this kind of being, you don't know if it's a person, you don't know if it's gender, you don't know if it's alive or dead, you don't know if it's going to come out or it's going to submerge. It's showing her parts, his intimate part. And in the dream, that being, the next one please, that being is standing on a forest in the dream, standing on a forest like a tree, inverted, naked again. And in that dream, the person that is dreaming began trees and began to masturbate it. So it's like the connection with the forest, connection with water, connection between body and nature. Like you don't know where, you don't see the face again. You need a face. So it's the inverted body. I showed you at the beginning of the presentation how nationalists painted like indigenous on the up in the lower part, like here is Alexander von Humboldt, and here on the right, the left is the indigenous. So here is a piece that blew my mind, especially because you will see this kind of mixture, like intertwined between with what something that we don't know is a person, we don't know the gender, but it's totally imbricated with the forest, the water. You don't know how this being moves so quickly, but it's all something that appears in a dream. And why dreaming is important for me is because a dream is something that you have to tell. It's a story that you have to recreate. So you have to put those images that you receive or you experience in the night, and you have to share it, and you have to tell a story. That's why the article is called 7 Fables for the Future of the Planet, because I think that through this war you have also the scale of the planet, the idea of journey, the idea of movement, and the idea that you are telling a story. So you are thinking about past, present, and future. You are not just thinking about the present. So I think that maybe that I should wrap it up. I don't know if you have any question or comment in the presentation. Leave the previous one, please. In the presentation, I want to send you and share with you also a curatorial project. But I think that with this is much more interesting to talk about it. I hope that you had a glance of Latin American art, history of Latin American art, especially the way that is changing rapidly because of the presence of new artists or new practices that are like questioning us, our boundaries, our foundation for our history. And this is a way of sharing you. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'm open to all sorts of questions. If you want to go back to another piece.